There comes a point in life when you grow exhausted from carrying the weight of invisible expectations, both from the world around you and from the voice within your own head. That voice whispers, sometimes shouts, that you are not enough yet, not worthy yet, not deserving until you have done more, achieved more, or proven yourself to others. It tells you that your value is conditional, measured only in accomplishments, approvals, and recognition. You feel its grip in the moments you hold back your truth because you fear judgment. You hear it when you scroll through endless comparisons, quietly asking why you aren't as far ahead as others. You notice it when silence after effort feels like rejection, when your worth seems to rise and fall with external applause. And in those heavy hours of self-doubt, you begin to wonder if life is nothing more than an endless trial where you must defend your right to exist and to matter. But what if that entire belief is a lie? What if you never needed to prove anything in the first place? What if your worth was already intrinsic, already whole, already complete, from the moment you came into this world? Imagine the freedom of living without that constant trial, the peace of knowing you are valuable simply because you exist, the courage of moving forward not to earn your worth but to express it. That is not just wishful thinking. It is a truth buried beneath layers of conditioning, fear, and comparison. And the journey of self-trust begins the moment you choose to uncover it. The struggle of self-doubt is as universal as it is personal. Psychologists often trace its roots to childhood experiences where love, validation, or acceptance felt conditional. A child praised only for high grades learns quickly to equate achievement with love. A young person criticized for mistakes or compared to others internalizes the message that nothing they are is ever enough. These messages, often unintended but deeply impactful, become internalized beliefs that echo into adulthood. You grow older, but that inner child still fears disapproval. You chase success, but every milestone feels temporary, because the next one looms like proof still required. This cycle is exhausting, and it builds an identity where value is always external, always outside of yourself, never within reach. And yet, if you pause long enough, you realize that no amount of proving has ever truly satisfied the craving. No applause lasts forever. No achievement silences doubt indefinitely. The hunger to prove only grows stronger the more you feed it. The real liberation lies not in proving but in accepting that your worth does not depend on a performance, accepting that your humanity alone is reason enough to exist fully and unapologetically. And this acceptance, while radical in a world built on competition and comparison, is what allows you to step into self-trust. Building self-trust does not mean that fear disappears or that self-doubt never whispers again. It means you learn to move forward even in the presence of those voices. You recognize them, but you no longer obey them. You begin to see that the need for proof is a story created by insecurity, and like any story, it can be rewritten. Imagine for a moment walking into a room and no longer rehearsing how to win approval, but instead grounding yourself in the quiet truth that you belong there regardless. Imagine taking risks not to prove that you are capable, but because you trust yourself enough to grow. Imagine relationships where you don't contort yourself to be worthy of love, but where you offer love freely because you already carry the foundation within. This shift is not sudden. It happens slowly, like dawn breaking through the night. Each time you honor your own needs without guilt, you strengthen self-trust. Each time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you build credibility within your own soul. Each time you silence the urge to perform for validation and instead choose authenticity, you prove to yourself that your worth has never needed an audience. The psychological weight of constantly proving yourself is immense. Studies on self-worth have shown that when people base their value on external validation, they experience higher levels of anxiety, depression, and burnout. It is like living on a treadmill that never stops, where every moment of rest feels like failure. In contrast, those who root their sense of worth in internal acceptance show greater resilience, creativity, and joy. They are not free from challenges, but they do not collapse under them because their identity does not shatter with every setback. This is the difference between living as a performance and living as a presence. The performer is always anxious about reviews. The one rooted in presence simply expresses themselves, knowing their value remains constant regardless of response. When you begin to believe that you do not need to prove yourself, life changes in subtle yet profound ways. Silence, once filled with doubt, becomes a space for peace. Failure, once feared as evidence of inadequacy, becomes simply a teacher. Success, once chased as proof of worth, becomes a celebration of expression. You stop looking outward for permission to be yourself, and start looking inward for alignment with your truth. And with each step, self-trust grows stronger. The walls built by comparison and fear begin to fall, revealing the wide-open space of a life lived authentically. This is not an easy path, but it is a liberating one. For every time you choose authenticity over approval, you reclaim another piece of yourself. For every time you act from trust rather than doubt, you step closer to freedom. Think of how many times in your life you have held back out of fear of judgment. Think of the opportunities missed, the words unspoken, the talents hidden because you were waiting for some external sign that it was safe to be you. And now, imagine what would be possible if that fear no longer dictated your choices. Imagine the art created, the relationships deepened, the dreams pursued. If you trusted yourself enough to live without proof, that is the invitation before you now, not to erase fear, not to eliminate doubt, but to choose trust over them both. And so we come to the closing reflection. Consider for a moment how long you have carried the weight of proving yourself, with the countless hours spent worrying about being enough, the endless rehearsals of conversations, the hesitation that has kept you on the sidelines of your own life. Consider how much of your spirit has been spent trying to satisfy an inner critic that was never truly yours to begin with. That critic was born from voices of the past, from a culture of comparison, from experiences that told you love and worth were conditional. But those voices are not truth. They are echoes, and like all echoes, they fade when you stop feeding them. The truth is far simpler and far more powerful. You are already enough. You always have been. You always will be. Imagine living from that truth. Imagine waking each morning not with the pressure to prove, but with the freedom to express. Imagine walking into spaces not with fear of judgment, but with the quiet confidence that you belong. Imagine loving without needing to earn it, creating without needing to justify it, dreaming without needing to defend it. This is the life available to you when you root yourself in self-trust. The steps toward it are not grand gestures but daily choices. To speak honestly, to honor your needs, to act from alignment rather than performance. Each choice is a seed, and over time those seeds grow into a garden of unshakable self-belief. You do not need the world's permission to exist. You do not need applause to validate your worth. You do not need to prove what is already true. Your value is not fragile, not conditional, not negotiable. It is inherent, unchanging, and yours by birthright. The more you live from this truth, the more peace, joy, and freedom will flow through your life. Yes, doubt may visit, but it no longer controls the home you live in. Yes, fear may whisper, but it no longer decides your direction. Self-trust becomes the foundation, and from that foundation, everything becomes possible. So here is the invitation. Step out of the courtroom of your own mind. Lay down the endless arguments, the exhausting defenses, the constant trials. There is no jury to convince, no verdict to wait for. You are free to walk away, free to live, free to trust yourself. And as you do, you will discover that the peace you were searching for was never out there in approval or achievement. It was always within you, waiting for you to believe. You don't need to prove yourself, you only need to be yourself. And that, in the end, is more than enough. And yet, even when you hear these words, even when a part of you wants to believe them, another voice may rise to argue back. That voice insists that worth must be earned, that until you accomplish more, you are not enough. It reminds you of failures, of comparisons, of times you were overlooked. It may even scoff at the idea of intrinsic value, saying, if I am enough already, why do I feel so small? Why do I still doubt? That voice is persuasive, not because it speaks the truth, but because it has been rehearsed for years. You have given it the microphone for so long that it feels like the only sound in the room. But here is what must be remembered. Repetition does not equal truth. Just because a belief has been repeated inside your head for years does not mean it deserves loyalty. Self-doubt grows not because it is accurate, but because it has been allowed to echo unchecked. And what has been practiced can also be unpracticed. A new voice, one rooted in self-trust, can be learned with the same persistence. Learning to trust yourself is like strengthening a muscle. At first it feels weak, fragile, unreliable. Every attempt to believe in yourself feels awkward, like lifting a weight too heavy. But the more you practice, the more strength grows. You build self-trust each time you honor a promise to yourself, even a small one. When you say you will take a walk and you follow through, when you promise yourself rest and you allow it without guilt, when you commit to being honest in a moment of fear and you do it anyway, you prove, not to the world, but to yourself, that your word matters. This is where self-trust begins, not in massive achievements, not in loud declarations, but in quiet, steady alignment with your own truth. Over time, those small acts accumulate. You begin to realize that your value has never been determined by the approval of others, but by the trust you cultivate with yourself. But there is another truth, one harder to accept yet necessary to acknowledge. Building self-trust requires letting go of the illusion of control over others. As long as you measure your worth by how others respond, you will remain at their mercy. Applause can lift you, but silence will destroy you. Approval can validate you, but criticism will shatter you. True freedom is found when you no longer hand your worth to another person's reaction. You cannot control whether people like you, whether they understand you, whether they celebrate or ignore you. You can only control your own alignment with yourself. And when that alignment is strong, the highs and lows of others' opinions no longer sway you as violently. You may still feel the sting of rejection, but it does not define you. You may still feel the warmth of praise, but it does not become your lifeline. Your anchor is within, not outside. It is not an easy journey, this unlearning of conditional worth. The world will continue to push its messages, that your value is in your productivity, that you must compete to matter, that silence equals insignificance. Everywhere you look, comparison calls out, inviting you back into the trial of proving. And some days you will falter. Some days the old voice of doubt will feel louder than the quiet voice of self-trust. That is not failure. That is simply part of the process of building a new foundation. No one builds a house without first facing storms that test its strength. Self-trust is not about never hearing doubt again. It is about knowing where to rest when doubt comes knocking. One of the most powerful ways to silence self-doubt is through presence. Doubt thrives in the future and in the past. What if I fail tomorrow? Why did I embarrass myself yesterday? But in the present moment, doubt loses its fuel. Right now, in this breath, in this second, you are safe. You are alive. You are enough. Every time you return to presence, you weaken the grip of fear. And with practice, presence becomes your home. You begin to act from the now, not from the imagined criticisms of tomorrow or the lingering regrets of yesterday. In presence, you remember, I do not need to prove myself. I only need to be myself. This is where life begins to open again, when self-trust becomes your anchor. You find courage to take risks not because you are certain of the outcome, but because you know you can handle it regardless. You try new things not to prove capability but to explore possibility. You let yourself rest without guilt, love without fear, create without hesitation. Every moment lived from this place reinforces the truth that your worth is constant, unshaken by outcomes. And slowly, the prison walls built by self-doubt begin to crumble. Think of the years ahead of you. Do you want them to be spent chasing approval, waiting for evidence that you are enough? Or do you want them to be years of freedom, where you live boldly from the knowledge that you already are? Picture yourself years from now. Looking back, will you regret the times you stumbled? Or will you regret the times you never tried because you doubted yourself too much to begin? The pain of regret always outweighs the discomfort of failure. But when you live from self-trust, regret diminishes, because even failure becomes an expression of authenticity. You learn, you grow, you move forward not because you must prove your worth, but because you are free to explore it. There is no finish line where someone finally hands you a certificate of worthiness. There is no external judge who can stamp you approved. The moment of freedom is not in the future. It is here, waiting for you to claim it. Every breath is a chance to choose trust over doubt, authenticity over performance, presence over proving. And every time you make that choice, the voice inside that says, I am enough, grows louder, steadier, more believable. Eventually it becomes your natural state, not arrogance, not pride, but a grounded confidence that needs no proof. So when doubt rises again, as it surely will, remind yourself it is only an echo, not a command. Let it pass. Stand rooted in the truth of your worth, and from there, move forward. Trust yourself to handle the unknown. Trust yourself to rise after falling. Trust yourself to be enough in the silence. The more you trust yourself, the less you need the world to prove you. And in that freedom, you will finally discover the peace you've been searching for all along.